Here's your truth bomb. Freedom always follows truth. That's our truth bomb for today. Freedom always follows truth. And I'm just going to say that truth, we have to start with being truthful in here. Truthful with what we believe, truthful with what we, how we live, living in integrity. Now these are my values, so, you do what you want to do. But, good morning. I really feel like we have to start living in integrity, which means you are, I forgot to turn notifications off. So hang on, hold on, this won't take but a second. When I say living in my integrity, I mean like being authentic as best I can in every area. There are some areas where it's not super safe for you to be all out, and if you have to spend regular time in a place where you can't be yourself, take a look at that. If you're not being yourself because you're worried about being rejected or disapproved of, take a look at that. And it's exhausting to live as one person in one arena and another person in another arena, and you have a lot of skills that the planet needs right now, which means you need to use them. So if you work with people and you're highly intuitive and things like that, but you're not applying that in your personal life, you might want to consider transferring that over. If you're an artist, yes. If you're an artist or a writer or some other kind of creative person and you know that flow you get into when you're creative, you don't have to leave that at the easel. You don't have to leave that at the laptop or whatever you write on. You can carry that flow into all areas of your life, and it's very important to start doing that to live in wholeness. Our time of living in chunked up pieces of ourselves, I believe, is over. And I believe it's very much our responsibility to know what we want and communicate what we want very clearly and repeatedly. If we're around people who are not listening to what we clearly say we want, and we have to say that, then we need to take a look at that. The time for wholeness is upon us, I believe. The time for living in the shadows is past, like already gone. And I think the new world requires that we not buy into the noise, that we don't contribute to the noise that happens all around us. Gossiping, worrying about other people's opinions, worrying about what people say and do. Start with yourself. Be truthful to yourself. Then start communicating that truth outward clearly. You may need to even take a basic communication class. You may need to ask other people, here's what I'm saying. What are you hearing me say? But the speaking of the truth is critical. I have heard from more than one person that they're ending up in painful situations from not speaking. And the person closest to me on that is my husband, who was not speaking his health issues and therefore was not getting treatment for them. And 3 days on a simple prescription medication, and he's like a different person. We have to speak our needs. We have to speak our truth and let the chips fall where they may. There's a quote I like that says, let people feel the weight of who you are much better. Let people feel the weight of who you are and let them deal with it. Why would you want people in your life who don't know you? Why would you want to spend time with people who you feel like you have to hide from? Being alone is painful. Being alone is better than being a liar. Lies hurt us. Hiding is a lie. It's a lie by omission in some degree. Keeping yourself a secret is lying to yourself, and that hurts you. It costs you valuable energy, and it contributes to a painful life, and it's time to stop it. Knock it off. I'm going to pull a quick card for us while the energy is flowing really strongly, and then we'll get to our book. The freedom that always follows truth is your own freedom. You being you across the board. You being you regardless of environment. You being you regardless of who is standing in front of you. Own it, claim it, live it, and watch your freedom increase. Own it, claim it, live it, and watch your peace increase. Let's get going, people. There's a lot of polarity in our country right now, which means we need to demonstrate wholeness, whole energy, whole presence. There's a lot of fragmentation and dichotomy. We can hold that in our wholeness. We can expand our own connection and our own energy of wholeness out to those around us, who then expand it to those around them, which can help restore the balance that we need. Hold on, a whole giant chunk fell. There's a lot that's calling to us, and if you're a regular attendee of this scope, you're in line to hear it if you're willing to hear it. And it's not a call through your ears, it's a call through your heart. It's a pressure in your heart, it's a restlessness in your gut. It's a call to action. But that action isn't going out and carrying protest signs. That action is finding the truth within yourself, owning it, and then communicating it, living it. I can't say that enough. Live the wholeness that is you. Live the wholeness that is your birthright. It's so needed. It's pretty loud, those cards, huh? Listen for the call. You might hear it in your dreams. You might hear it when you're pacing around your house and can't really understand why you feel so restless. And all it takes is asking the question. I'm ready to hear. I'm ready to listen. One ring circus reversed is what we have. I'll turn it up for you, but it came up reversed. One ring circus reversed. Let's see what we have. And this is at the Enchanted Map deck. One Ring Circus says, if you think the sun won't rise without you, it's time to change. Perhaps you believe no one will be there to help you, or you expect you have to do all the work, emotional or otherwise. This is a fear-based idea, and only serves to alienate you from others by taking away their right to participate. If we do it all ourselves, we don't give the people around us a chance to participate. If we say we want help and then judge the help we get, we don't give the people around us a chance to contribute. So what this is saying is you actually hold yourself apart from other people by taking on too much, by carrying the mountain you're meant to climb. I read that somewhere. That's not mine. You have to, again with the wholeness and the truth-telling, unless you really want to carry the whole burden of life yourself, you need to expand and let other people help you. Their help is not going to be your help, but it's help. So if you ask your family to help you more and then slam them because they don't do it the right way, they're not going to keep helping you, and you're going to continue setting up this pattern of expectation and harm, expectation and harm. It's Freud's birthday, so let's talk real quickly about repetition compulsion, because that's what that is. We keep setting up the same situation to make sure that we stay hurt, to make sure that our scripts for life stay in place. What I'm saying is there is a calling that's in your belly, in your heart, that's asking you to do it differently now. That's asking you to stop carrying the whole world on your shoulders. The weight of the world stuff, you can let go of that now. But letting go of that means letting go of control. Letting people be who they are and communicate to you the way they do. And you work on your communication to them in the way you do. And by going back and forth, you'll find the path. People help us all the time if we let them. If we recognize it's help, even if it may not look the way we think it ought to look. Telling the truth is a great responsibility. And telling the truth starts with ourselves and then starts with our families. So my husband helps me a lot, and it never looks like what I want it to. He unloads the dishwasher. He never does it right. No problem. He, loads it, unloads it. He sweeps. He does the floors. He never does it the way I would do it. He helps me. His style of communication is shit by my standards. So I tell him now, here's what I want. And when he says what I think is wrong, I say, I'd really love it if you would say this to me. I really want to hear it with my physical human ears. I really want to hear you say this thing. And he will. He'll say, oh, okay. And he'll say back to me, because my physical ears want to hear it a certain way, and he'll do that. But I have to tell him to do it. I have to communicate to him. A fear-based idea of believing that no one is there to help you only serves to alienate you from others by taking away their right to participate. Receiving the one-ring circus card may indicate misuse of power. Give it up. Let go of the need to control how the wind blows and let others play their part. A symphony is no good if it's only clarinets. A symphony is worthless if it's only the drum section. We have to have the drums and the winds and the horns and the strings and the all. We have to have it all for the beauty. But our part in the symphony is different than the other people's part. We are connected to each other like we're all clarinets. But our spouses might be drums. Or God forbid, the oboe. What the hell is that? We want the symphony and the beauty and the chorus. I don't know if ever in meditation you've heard the chorus. A sound you can't, it's not a sound in your ears. It's the chorus of the universe. To make the chorus requires the differences. We can't all be the same. God, how boring. Let go of the need to control how the wind blows. Let others play their part. You don't need to be invincible, have all the answers, or be the savior. Yeah, we were just talking about symphony. Things will get done if you step out of your own way, if you will let yourself do without doing. As an artist, sometimes something else is drawing. It's not me, and it is me. When I'm writing, sometimes something else takes over and is doing the writing, and it's me and it's not me. Same thing with speaking. Sometimes all the stuff that comes pouring out is me but not me. That's doing without doing. That's as you access your creativity, something else is coming through you. That doesn't have to be segmented. It can be your whole life. You can open up your whole life to be an act of creation and let that you, that's you but not you, move you through life. Don't leave it at the easel. Don't leave it at the keyboard. Bring it. Live it. All of your life can have that. Another meaning for this card suggests that someone else may be trying to control you. Yes, let them speak more. This is just a card we're reading, a card we drew. Don't be afraid to set boundaries. It's a wonderful step to interdependence. Consider the example of two trees planted side by side, sharing the same sunlight equally, neither overshadowing the other. Two trees side by side. So let's quickly read the upright one, because usually both apply, and then we'll get on to our book. Independence is key now as you step into your journey today. Others may not have the visions or the resources that you need. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say others don't have the visions and resources that you need, because they're in you. Turn around. Turn around. Look in you. You have this vast wealth of resources going untapped because you're trying to pull your resources from your environment. It's not in your environment. It's in you. It's in that part of you that's you, not you. Open and let that flow through. It's freaking scary at first when you feel your hands moving outside of your conscious control. It's terrifying. And it gets more comfortable, and you start to crave that. It was a perfect card. All the wisdom you've acquired along the way of your life makes you competent, capable of moving forward with assurance. Self-reliance is important. Another aspect to consider is creating and maintaining clear boundaries between you and another. Be discerning about your partnerships. When you know who you are and have a healthy sense of where you end and others begin, you're able to enter into the best kind of relationships. Interdependent relationships are not parent-child. Often we're approaching our spouse as a parent. We're offering and we're wanting to receive a parental response. Our spouses are not our parents. Our kids are not our parents. Our parents are not our parents anymore if we're adults or if they're gone. Our self-reliance is key. Our understanding what our truth is, our understanding of our unique gifts and abilities is key. Interdependent relationships are mutually supportive, stimulating, and transformative. You can achieve anything at this time. What you can't achieve if you're living with one of these pickles is getting through a scope without your tripod being knocked over at least once. Okay, buddy. Okay, buddy. Can you hear him chirping? Ding, ding, ding. Oh, he's scratching his ear now. Oops. Thank you. He's chirping. I don't know if you can hear him. He chirps in his throat. Can you hear him? He is so cute. He is so cute. Say hi to the camera. Naughty. Okay. That's my rant for the day. I just feel like we're, yeah, he chose us. We'll see what happens. I don't know if he'll stay with us forever. We're just kind of playing it loose and seeing what happens with him. He's here for now. His health is improving. Oh, thank you. I just feel like our time is running out for us to start living our truth. And the thing about it is, it's just a relaxing into what is your natural state. It's unnatural for us to wear all these masks. And we don't have to wear them anymore. We thought we had to. We don't. We don't have to. We can start taking them off and being seen. As scary as it is to be seen, it's time for that. It's time for it. Relax. There's no trying. There's relaxing. Relaxing into who you are. Deep breathing and relaxing. Yes, the time. Yes, please. Don't wait. The world needs you. So let's move on to our mind-body code now that I'm done ranting about things. Yes, see me, and then when you look at me, I'm going to freak out and go into hiding. I want you to see me, but not too close. It's uncomfortable. And let me just say this last thing, and because this has to do with the book we're reading, The Mind-Body Code. When you start to bring these energies in, it's physically uncomfortable. It can't even be physically painful when you start to be seen. Because being seen means accessing more of your energy and showing that energy to the world and feeling that you're touching of the world in a different way and the world touching you in a different way. It can be physically uncomfortable. So move. Create, move, walk, shake, that belly dance shaking or Koya dance shaking. Move your body. When you feel that discomfort of someone looking at you and someone really seeing you and you start to freak out, it's just unfamiliar energy. That's all it is. Move it. Move your body. Shake your butt. Yes. It gets you familiar with that energy in your yeah. If you're in tremendous pain, I hope that you're seeking help for that. That's not a great way to be. Not a great way to live. Okay, so we were talking last time about sustainable change. Part of sustainable change is getting familiar with these new energies that you're expressing through your physical self. When you take off your masks and you start to stand more exposed in your truth, your physical body will really sometimes have a hard time with that. So make sure you're moving or doing some yoga or something. So working with just the mind or working with just the body, it doesn't work. And that's why we have not been successful in sustaining change. We talked last time about white knuckle sobriety or white knuckling change never lasts. Change that we force onto other people never lasts because it's not cohesive. It's not whole, again, with that wholeness. It's got to be all of it. The body. So he's talking about, so we left off with addictions. Where addictions are concerned, in addition to any genetic predispositions we may have, the functional meaning that underlies addictive behavior is the self-destructive distraction to avoid feeling worthy. And so what I want to say about that is, we try to avoid feeling how powerful we are, how big we are spiritually and energetically. Because to feel that power is so uncomfortable. If we're used to living this size, even to go up to living this size is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable in the body. So to actually experience the vastness of who you actually are can be overwhelming, and you may not even be able to sustain that for more than a few seconds at a time. Got to read this book, buddy. You can't read it if you've got your front part on it. Excuse me. It's laying right on the book. So, we relinquish the sense of worthiness when we experienced our archetypal wounds, which are abandonment, betrayal, or, what was the other one? What was the other one? Abandonment, betrayal, and shame. Shame, abandonment, and betrayal are the three wounds that we can carry around in combination or singly. So, the repetition compulsion that Freud talked about is that we have that original wound. We have that original wound, and we keep playing it out, and we keep playing it out, and we keep playing it out until we're done with it, until we finally put the pieces together and we heal it, and then we stop playing it out. And then we don't see it showing up in patterns in our environment or in our relationships. We talked about this before. If you believe poverty is your destiny, any condition that challenges it, does it? I haven't seen the mantra yet today. Any condition that challenges your belief will cause turbulence for you. It will make you very uncomfortable. When you've been going through life hidden and you start to be seen, it will make you very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Turbulence is a great word for it. Rehab programs fail because they focus on changing the behavior rather than the distraction from one's intrinsic self-worth that the addictive behavior provides. Negative emotions can trigger a need for and inspire change, but they mostly wound instead. Getting down on yourself and hammering on yourself to create change only adds to your wounding. You're only adding to your pain. Okay, and here are two more important terms. The true agents of change. Here's the true agents of change that he talks about. Elevated cognitions and exalted emotions. These agents of change provide sustained transformation. In fact, they have triumphed over the greatest infamies and darkest periods in our human journey. Elevated cognition can be defined as higher thinking. These include such thoughts as admiration, recognition of moral conduct, dignity, modesty, other concepts that reflect graceful acknowledgement of human excellence in ourselves or others. Women still find it hard to brag on themselves. Women in particular still find it hard to really own how powerful they are and really own how amazing their gifts are. The more we own them, the more comfortable we get. But in the beginning of owning them, it's very, very unfamiliar, so it's very, very uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. Exalted emotions are love, empathy, compassion, gratitude, awe, inspiration, any other feeling that confirms that which is noble in self and others. It's a disservice to ourselves and others when we put our heads down and say that we're not enough. When we, bend our body over and say that we're not good enough, it's a crime. It's a crime. Mind Body Code, Mario Martinez. So the two agents of sustainable change are powerful. They facilitated, see if you can challenge yourself to change that. Okay, let's see. So exalted emotions and exalted elevated cognitions are what have created the end of slavery, genocide, prejudice, hegemony, and other atrocities that plague humanity in the name of religion or idealism. That's how strong they are. If they've been powerful enough to overcome tyranny, we can safely conclude they are equally effective when applied to individual change. We can apply the same dignity that ended apartheid to ending smoking, overeating, or any other self-destructive conduct that lacks inclusive compassion for 100% of ourselves, which is inclusive compassion, the concept in Tibetan Buddhist psychology that views compassion for self as inseparable from compassion toward others. So what that implies is if you say you're compassionate toward other people, but you're not compassionate toward yourself, you're living a lie. And what? Where's our truth bomb? Freedom always follows truth. If you say that everyone else is great, but you're a piece of garbage, you're lying. You are bound. You are enslaved. Freedom follows truth. Freedom always follows truth. That means owning the truth of your magnificence. I'm not saying any of this is easy, and neither is he. And in fact, he says several times, this is not an easy path to take. This takes a lot of perseverance and a lot of willingness to endure and transform pain. The collective wounding field of shame that maintained apartheid in South Africa with the ruling whites degrading the blacks was resolved with the healing field of honor that brought racial equality and an end to infamy. I wouldn't say it's ended. I don't think people who live there would say that it's over. I would say that it's better. Changing any dysfunctional condition leaves a vacuum, so just as Nelson Mandela prevented a bloodbath of revenge when he created the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, we must fill the vacuum with choices that inspire sustainable improvement. So it is that the healing fields of honor, commitment, and loyalty can heal the archetypal wounds of shame, abandonment, and betrayal that obstruct our attempts to reach personal excellence. The starting point of all this work is breathing. Sounds simple. It is simple. Breathing connects you to all that you are. Deep, regular practice of breathing and being present for yourself at least once a day, every single day, has a cumulative effect of opening you up to this information that he's talking about. It opens you up to the awareness of where you're uncomfortable. It exposes to your own self where you're lying to yourself. And I don't mean that you should feel like a crap person because you tell yourself lies. You should feel like a human person because you tell yourself lies. That's what we do. That's what we're trying to become aware of so we can make a different choice. And it's not about killing our ego. I know I say this all the time, but it's so important. You don't kill your ego. You don't chop up and cast out parts of yourself, but doing so just creates more shadow. You bring in the parts of yourself that you've already cast out into the cold. You bring in all the parts of yourself that you think are so horrible. And generally, we see those in other people, the parts of ourselves that we really, really don't like. We see them in other people, so we really, really don't like other people. Moving now from the conceptual to the practical, let's begin to decipher the mechanisms that are at work when we fail to change a behavior despite knowing that change is in our best interests. So he's going to talk about the details of how it happens. If we can see the behavior we're trying to change as an act of avoidance from what? Our power. Avoidance from the discomfort of feeling our wonderfulness. If we can understand that we're not changing because we're afraid, first of all, we can be kinder to myself. Oh, yeah, eventually when we get this little cat settled, I'll go back to scoping from the deck where you can hear the creek and the birds. So if we can see the behavior we're trying to change as an act of avoidance, we can identify the wound that we're reluctant to confront and identify the healing field we lack the feelings of self-worth to embrace. When we identify what condition we can create to replace the vacuum that may be left once we stop the destructive behavior we've been engaging in. We have to do those three things, okay? We have to identify the wound. We have to identify the antidote or the healing field to the wound and become willing to embrace it. And then we have to be ready to fill the vacuum of the behavior. So we talked about that before, where if an addict stops using meth, they may start drinking too much alcohol. If someone then tries to stop drinking alcohol, they may switch to smoking pot. It just keeps changing. The form keeps changing, but the root cause is still there. We have to do this before we try to change it. Although we may be aware of the discomfort we feel from our dysfunction, the emotional investment we've made in our dysfunctional behavior served us well in the past as a distraction. It starts with breathing. There's the antidote to the three, shame, betrayal, and why can't I remember them all at the same time? It's the opposite. So commitment heals abandonment, honor heals shame, and loyalty heals betrayal. Abandonment, shame, and betrayal. On a practical, day-to-day, moment-to-moment skill, deep breathing, remembering to breathe every time you feel yourself starting into some negative self-talk or starting down the road of being upset about something, Remembering to deep breathe will often short circuit that process entirely, and then information can come to you on what to do next. But what he's saying is it's important that we investigate all this before we try to do the actual changing part. So, and what he's saying too is that our dysfunctional behavior had a purpose. It kept us alive. It kept us, it did something for us. All behavior has a function, all of it. If we can figure out what the function is, we can generally achieve the same function with a more effective behavior. But we've got to figure out what it's serving, what purpose it's serving. Then, if we don't know what purpose it's serving, then we just change the method. So, any investment, be it in something positive or negative, creates attachments. One of the paths to freedom from painful conditions is to mourn the end of our attachment to our known misery. I've done that a lot with people, suggested that grief rituals for letting go of sugar. If you're having trouble giving up sugar because of all the emotional investment you have in what it does for you, you may need to grieve letting go of that tool. You may need to grieve letting go of this familiar safety and comfort of your familiar bad feeling, whatever that is. Under stress, we all have usually one familiar bad feeling that we retreat into, and we wrap it around ourselves like a blanket. It's comfortable, it's familiar. We can relax because we know it so well. As you're letting go of that, you might need to grieve and say goodbye to it. Like, goodbye, sadness. I'm not going to wrap you around me like a blanket anymore because I'm learning that I don't need that kind of blanket anymore, assuming that you're doing your work. So as we learn to confront the true causes of our discomfort, the shame, betrayal, and abandonment, which is where it starts, we redefine our story about them and we embrace their healing field, the healing antidote or whatever. We must also mourn the end of a familiar, if harmful, companionship, our avoidance mechanism. Only then can we fill that vacuum with the dignity fields that have long bested the darkest side of our human tribal journeys. You may really want to take a look at what you need to grieve the loss of when you stop, when you're getting ready to stop doing something, talking badly to yourself or not letting yourself get familiar and experience the discomfort of moving into your power. Once you make sure you know what the physical pain is doing for you, you can't grieve it and let go of it until you understand what it's sometimes called a secondary payoff, what the hidden agenda of the pain is. Yeah. Yep. So what's the pain doing for you? What's it holding for you? Have you questioned it and let it speak to you of what's underneath all that? And don't be afraid to get a therapist or a coach to help you with that. It's hard to do the deep level work by ourselves. It can be done, but it's faster and usually more effective with others. So a coach or a therapist or a friend or a pastor, somebody that you can trust to be kind of gentle and yet truthful with you. So it's important to note that certain unwanted actions are not necessarily related to wounds and they can also become habitual. We certainly learn inefficient ways of behaving that through repetition become habits disconnected from our awareness. For example, we may habitually take a long congested road to work and fail to notice how frustrated we are when we reach our destination. But once we pay attention to how we feel, we can consider alternative routes. In fact, this kind of discovery can bring great joy when they lift a burden we have created through simple lack of awareness rather than by avoiding wounds. So a common pattern in when we're little and we want to stop something from happening that we're uncomfortable with, we usually learn some tools to do that. And I'm going to give you some gender stereotypes, but please keep in mind they are stereotypes. So generally, women have learned through experience that tears will stop a conversation or stop something from happening that we don't like, that we're uncomfortable with. Men learn that slipping into anger and becoming a jerk can stop an uncomfortable situation. So, simple behavior modification. We learned when we were 3 that if we got angry and threw a temper tantrum, people would leave us alone. And the uncomfortable situation that we were tantruming about stopped. Tears, anger. So when you see an angry man, sometimes it's a wound, but sometimes it's a learned behavior. They've learned anger as a boundary because they can't speak a boundary. So they never learned how to say, this is getting too emotional for me. This is overwhelming me, this conversation. I need to take a break for 15 minutes and then get my head together, and then I'll come back and we can continue talking. Very few men know how to say that because very few men know when they're getting overwhelmed. They just go straight into anger because they need it to stop. That's the function of the anger. The function of the anger is protecting themselves. So it makes perfect sense. When we feel threatened and our systems start to become overwhelmed, we will use whatever tool we have to protect ourselves because survival is our primary thing, right? So if we feel like we're being overwhelmed and we're drowning and anger is our tool, hi Carrie, we use it. If we feel like we're overwhelmed and we're drowning because communication is making us so uncomfortable and we're female, generally we'll start to cry because crying will change the dynamic. It will generally cause whoever we're interacting with to back off. The problem is it meets our survival needs in the moment, but then it never addresses the original issue. So the more we can learn to first breathe, second, recognize our energy, get to know our energy systems like we talked about a couple of days ago with moving through the chakras or the safety portals, whatever you want to call them, so that you know yourself. Then we can say to someone else, I feel overwhelmed, I need to step back and take a break. So you don't have to use anger as a tool to set that boundary anymore. Just like the card actually. We use anger and tears to set boundaries. As adults, we can learn to set boundaries with our words. We can learn that we're getting overwhelmed and we need to set a limit. We can say that. I am overwhelmed right now. I need to take a break. So you can look for those patterns. And that's what he's saying, that some of those are just habitual tools we've learned to use that are ineffective in our current relationships. Are you chirping? A little chirpy? I should have named you Chirpy. Okay. The more we achieve that awareness, the more we're aware of ourselves and our own needs, the more truth we can speak, so the more freedom we have. I'm just going to keep bringing this up. The more truth we speak, the more freedom we have, the better our relationships are. Good morning. So I think so far you can boil this down to breathing. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes to both of those questions. Yes, crying is good. I'm talking about figuring out what your behavior is using as your function. Oh, good. And yeah, the cat got neutered last Thursday, a week ago, and his health is coming back really quickly. He was a pretty sick little guy when he showed up on the doorstep. We were pretty sick, little weirdo. Excuse me. Yeah. So this is talking about ineffective, dysfunctional behavior. You can't know what your ineffective behavior is if you haven't taken the time to learn who you are and become aware of yourself. So it's the ability to step back a little bit and be the observer. Okay, so some of these teaching methods may appear counterintuitive, but they offer practical alternatives to conventional life science view of human beings as being biochemical machines. Learning the experiential mindset helps you understand why some highly intelligent people can make profoundly unwise decisions. So good. He's such a goofball. He's such a goofball. And as you can see, he's still too handsy. We're doing some training, so he's getting better about not attacking my hands, but he does still do it. This is why really smart people make really bad decisions. This is why some self-proclaimed gurus lead miserable lives in their personal life, and why pharmaceutical companies invest fortunes in formulating medications for relief of symptoms rather than cures. The pharmaceutical company focuses on treating the symptoms. They don't focus on the cure. All of these paradoxes are the result of reductionist thinking that leaves out cultural context and fails to recognize that reasoning is not the same as embodying. Just thinking with your mind is not the same with including your body in the equation. You can't make holistic decisions if you're not including your whole self. Get out of here, Bob. Go find something to do. Go get a snack. You're only making a decision with half of your being, so how could it possibly be as effective as if you made a decision with your whole self? And it's saying, I mean, when he's referring to cultural context, he's referring to our stories. Thanks. If you aren't investigating your stories about things and the meanings that you put on things, you're going to miss out a huge section of information too. So, let's see. Conventional biology borrowed from reductionist Newtonian physics what is called upward causality, going from the simplest to the most complex mechanics of a system. This is the book we're reading. I think it's in the title, Mind Body Code. If a car is, so here's an example of Newtonian physics. You're welcome. Upward causality. For example, if a car is leaking gas, the solution is to fix the leak, whether the car is in Paris or the Brazilian Amazon. So no matter where in the world a vehicle is, if it's leaking gas, the solution is to fix the leak. But if we generalize reductionist solutions to human beings, they fail. So you would think, using that example, someone shooting up heroin, the solution is to stop shooting up heroin. Seems simple, right? But we're not cars. We can't just fix the leak. It's not that easy. You can't just, stitch up the wound. In a human being, we're more complex than that. The complexity of living systems, including human beings, is neither reducible to its functions nor independent of contextual conditions. In other words, unlike machines, we give meaning to our actions within cultural context. And what that means is we've got to understand the why of what we're doing. People shoot up heroin for different reasons, and until you understand the reason and the secondary payoffs for it, you can't affect a sustainable cure. You can treat the symptoms, but you can't cure it. If a person of European ancestry living in New York City is diagnosed with anemia, a physician can treat it successfully. But if the same symptoms of anemia are diagnosed in an Indian or mestizo patient by an Aymara shaman in the Bolivian Andes as limpu, Limpu, No amount of intervention by Western medicine can save the patient. The cause of limpu is culturally attributed to witnessing a stillbirth, and the belief is that the spirit of the infant consumes the body of the person who witnessed it, so the spirit can remain on earth. Interestingly, white Bolivians living in that exact same area of the Andes do not succumb to limpu because their Western cultural ancestry does not contextualize anemia as limpu. I'm probably not saying that right. This is a striking example of the myriad ways in which our biological functioning is strongly influenced by the cultural attributions we give to causes of illness, our stories about illness. Germ theory isn't 100% true. And what he's saying is our beliefs about how we get sick influence if we get sick. If you believe that going out in a rainstorm is going to make you sick, you're going to get sick. If another person believes that going out in a rainstorm is the most healing thing you can do, they're not going to get sick. They don't believe it. It's not in their cultural context. It's not in their bank of stories for what causes things to happen. What he's saying, additionally, another example of that is people can be exposed to the same germs, but not everybody gets sick. There's something to do with our genetic structure, our immune system in the moment. So you can't say everyone who gets exposed to Zika virus is going to get Zika. You can't say that, and no doctor would say that. Because we know it's about belief, it's about our immune system, and it's absolutely so complex that you can't ever make a blanket statement like that about germs or viruses. Oh, and he just uses the rain example. If you were a child, when you were a child, your mother told you not to go out in the rain because you'd catch a cold. It's likely to become prophecy because we believe it. So you'll find that in family systems sometimes, where everybody shares the same belief over what makes you sick, and so everybody in that family system experiences that series of events. But a different family system in the same environment would not experience the same series of events because they don't share that belief. Beliefs that are shared strongly among family members, such as everybody stays poor, are really hard to break because there's power in the group. There's power in the group mind. It's hard to be separate from your family because there's so much pull and power of the group. And that's all up here. And he's calling that embodied perception. So we perceive through our physical selves. Here's another example of that, and that is schizophrenia or multiple personality disorder would be what it would be called if someone was hearing voices in our Western culture. When I was in an anthropology class and did a paper on a culture in, I think, Brazil. It's been like 100 years ago. But if that person was hearing voices, it was not viewed as any kind of problem. They just learned to hear them and talk about it or transmit the information or whatever. It wasn't viewed as anything major. It was just, this person is a person who hears voices. This person is a person who doesn't hear voices. It's accepted. I've talked to several people about, I feel that we've lost something in not allowing for people who just tend to be a little bit melancholy or nostalgic. People, even in our own culture, not that long ago, would say, oh yeah, so-and-so just has a melancholy disposition. They just tend to be pessimistic and a little, withdrawn. Probably a lot of introverts were labeled melancholy. But there's some people that just kind of have this low-level melancholy disposition. We've pathologized that, and I know you guys have heard me rant on that before. We've pathologized normal human differences in how we live our lives and how we move through the world. Just because you have a melancholy disposition doesn't mean you're broken. It only means you have a melancholy disposition. Maybe that's due to a trauma, or maybe that's just due to your personality. And I think we do a really terrible job of allowing for all the massive amounts of variations there are in personalities and worldviews. Kitty butt. Okay, so he's calling embodiment as knowing more than our rational understanding can know. It's that knowing in your gut. It's the knowing. It's the knowing that you know. You know that you know that you know, but you can't explain how you know. That's embodiment. That's embodiment perception. This is why trying to reason our way out of unwanted behavior has such limited success. It's like trying to help an addict by simply explaining that the abused substance is dangerous, solving your chronic hostility by recognizing it can lead to cardiovascular disorders, or coming out of a depression by simply deciding to think happy thoughts. None of those scenarios is realistic, and yet aren't we often confronted with that? Oh, you're depressed? Well, just be happy. Just, think positively. Just write affirmations 100 zillion times without ever addressing why you're depressed in the first place. And then people feel like failures when those don't work. Right. People feel like I'm broken because I can't just think happy thoughts. It's more complex than that. There's more to it than that. So why does changing the dysfunctional behaviors that can harm us require so much? It can. So much more than intellectual appeal. Here's where embodiment can provide some of the answers. Perception is accomplished by mind-body actions in time and space. If there's no action, the senses involved cannot assimilate the associations the brain makes about an event. But the brain makes its interpretation in co-authorship with the body. I cannot keep him off. But you don't have to continue to suffer in silence. You don't have to stay there. Just because society has an opinion about how you should handle it doesn't mean you have to handle it that way. You're speaking up right now. It's very important that people who suffer with chronic depression speak out. That's the only way that that's going to change. That squashing. Yeah, that squashing of your experience. Isn't he the naughtiest thing ever? He's so funny. He's such a little clown. He's doing so much better. Do you see? He's grabbing my hand. He's putting his teeth on me, but he's not hurting me. Just 1 week ago, he was grabbing my hand and leaving me a bloody hamburger mess. So he's very intelligent and responding really well to training away from using my hand as a play toy. So embodiment is when we walk the talk. Yes, absolutely. I'm not ever going to judge you. Oh, good, Angela. I'm glad. We perceive with a mind-body process that can't be separated from the cultural context in which the perception takes place. Oh, no, he's eating his dinner. His food's behind me. This is my office. My house is over there. His food's behind me that's what he was snacking on. He's got food and water back there. Okay, whenever he says cultural context, he's talking about stories. Okay, the stories we're raised with regarding what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, what we can and can't do. Well, if he ate my dinner, I'd find some more. Nothing's going to stop me from getting a snack when I want one. Here's an example. If you find a lion in your living room, your mind-body reaction is going to be very different than if you see that same lion at the circus, okay? Lions at the circus, also not okay, but lions at the circus is generally acceptable. Lion in your living room, not acceptable. So that's what he's talking about, context. A lion in my living room doesn't match my story of where lions ought to be. I also don't believe they should be in circuses or zoos, but let's say a lion in the plains of Africa where they belong is acceptable. A lion showing up in my front yard, absolutely not acceptable. Same thing, presence of a lion, but the context is completely different. Yeah, we all do. We've all got monkeys in our mind. Yeah. So, this embodiment of the mind-body incorporation of what we perceive. The word incorporate, okay, think about this. The root of the word incorporate comes from the Latin incorporatus, united into one body. Although we embody what we perceive, we seem to function as if our mind were the only agent involved, because we have done a terrible job of recognizing the language of our body, which is emotions, sensations, gut feeling, heart pounding, shallow breathing. It's all the language our body speaks to us all the time. The chronic pain, the random out of nowhere illness, it's speaking to us constantly. We haven't done a great job of learning the language and asking. How many times do you ask your body, I feel this pain in my lower back. Is there something I need to know? Yeah, not my monkey, not my circus. I love that saying. If my pain had a voice, what would it say to me? If these chronic migraines could speak their story to me, what would that story be? And you can get to that a number of ways. You can go see a therapist. Oh, Amelia, my lower back and the whole lower part of my body has been in pain now for 2 weeks. I've had one thing after another. We've been talking about root chakra stuff, lower back pain, UTIs, just everything that could happen below the waist. We've been talking a lot about root chakra work. Interesting point about root chakra work. If you're doing a lot of working with the energy in your lower chakras, please make sure to remember at the end of your session or your meditation to pull that energy up out your head, out through the top of your head. My mom reminded me of that the other day. She's done a lot of work with teaching on chakra systems. She'll be putting together something for you guys. Also, as I ran across a thing that said that as women approach menopause, before menopause, there's a two-way street with the root chakra and the earth. Energy comes in, it goes out during our periods. It comes in, it goes out. As our periods start to lessen and become further and further apart, that root chakra energy is coming in, but it has nowhere to go. And so in our late 40s, 50s, 60s, we need to unconsciously practice pulling that root chakra energy up out through our heads, which is why I think women start to hit menopause and perimenopause and suddenly start to get really smart and wise. Because where that energy, it will naturally move up that way, but we can take some conscious influence in that. Yeah, so if you have a lot of lower body issues that are chronic, it may be there's too much root chakra energy and it needs to go ahead and come up, be pulled up through the chakras. Yes, Amelia, the beginner Kundalini, that's exactly what we were talking about yesterday. Oh yeah, it's my lower back is incredibly painful. Oh, you're so empathic. You're picking it up. I haven't made myself an essential oil root chakra blend. I'm doing daily meditations with root chakra. Yeah, so Google that, Kundalini and menopause, and you'll find some interesting information about root chakra stuff. Oh yeah, don't take my pain. That's my pain. You don't have to have it. So yeah, lower back pain. I know more than one person on here has lower back issues, and I've had them bad, and I've had random physical illnesses showing up with this root chakra stuff. So here's what he's saying is that's all information and communication from your body if we listen and ask, what is this lower back pain trying to tell me? And when you ask your body to communicate with you, it very rarely says, well, this lower back pain has to do with the fact that you've got too much root chakra energy floating around down here and you're having trouble receiving. So could you work on that? That's not how your body communicates. Your body generally communicates through symbols, emotions, pictures, dreams. a sense. You get a sense of things. Your body won't send you a memo. And it can't push its awareness into your brain. All it can do is broadcast this pain, 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 pain. It's saying, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. But as it communicates, it's symbolic, and understanding the symbols can be tricky. Symbolism, dreams, random events. This is the body's language. And asking and honoring the fatigue. Martha Beck says we need to do more of nothing. That we can help the planet best by doing more of absolutely nothing. Just sitting in the energy. You are all in knots. What is your body saying to you? Okay? So he's calling embodying when we walk the walk rather than talk the talk. When we feel the meaning of the word truth for us. What does truth mean? It's really easy for me to say, start speaking your truth, stand in your truth. And you're like, what the hell does that mean? Ask yourself what it means. It's going to mean different things to different people. For me, when I first started speaking the truth, it meant danger and risk. It was extremely uncomfortable to speak my truth. Because I had been taught that to speak your truth was to get your head knocked off. That bad things happened to people who spoke up. So when I started speaking up, I had to look at what does speaking up mean and educate myself that it isn't dangerous to speak up anymore. Or if there's danger, I can handle it. There's ways I can deal with people's disapproval. There's ways I can deal with people's negative reactions if I say something that is my truth and they are not in agreement with that. It's a process. It's not flipping a light switch off and on. When we feel the meaning of a word or an action, when we experience the profoundness of love, when we are engulfed in an act of compassion, when we feel facial tension the moment we notice we are frowning, the crux of the matter is this: we learn embodied dysfunctions and we hopelessly attempt to change them with disembodied reasoning. Reasoning's not going to cut it for you. Let's celebrate the insight that resistance to change has less to do with intellect than with lack of the proper tools. You're not a failure because you haven't been able to sustain a change. You just haven't had all the information. You just haven't had access to the tools. Love you too. Have a great day. Imagine how well even a genius could drive a nail using a screwdriver instead of a hammer. Okay, even a genius with a screwdriver trying to hammer two boards together is going to be a spectacular failure. It doesn't mean they're broken. It means they've got the wrong tool in their hand, and that's all it is. It doesn't mean you're broken if you've tried and failed and tried and failed and tried and failed. It just means you need some more information. You need to engage your body and find the missing pieces of your story. And find out what story you're telling in the first place so that you can fill in the gaps, so that you can take a look and say, is this how I want to continue functioning in my relationships? Is this the pattern I want to continue in my workplace? Is this the repetition compulsion at work? Maybe I need to take a look at that. So I'm going to stop there because I feel like I've been talking forever. And this is my day to do nothing. Literally. I got up, I drew on the llama. I'll draw some more on the llama probably. Yeah, this book is amazing. This book is really amazing. It can be hard to read if you're not used to reading academic text. But if you are used to reading academic text, you'll be able to probably figure it out. Yeah. The mind-body code. Mind and body is one word. It cannot be separated. And to try to change one without engaging the other is destined for failure. Okay, so, oh my God, this guy. Can you see this? Look at this. He's hiding under my desk. Can you see him? Oh, he moved. He's hiding under my desk. Oh, I try to translate it, Amelia, and make it more practical. It's ironic, isn't it? He's writing about not just using your intellect, but he's writing in such an intellectually based style that it's hard to understand. All right, I love you guys very much. Have a wonderful Friday. I'll see you tomorrow with the twins for probably a pretty short Dow discussion, because that's how it goes with those two little knuckleheads. And I love you. I love you very much. If you've got chronic pain going on, grab your journal, sit down, and do you guys know how to do the alternate writing? So you write a question with your dominant hand, but you let your non-dominant hand answer. So you can write, what are you trying to tell me, lower back? And you switch hands and you let your left hand answer. I forget what it's called. It's a therapeutic technique. I forget what you call it. But it's non-dominant. You ask questions with your dominant hand. So if you're left-handed, write your question left-handed, but then switch pens and let your right hand answer you. And don't judge it. Just try to step back and let your back talk to you in some words, or even better, let your non-dominant hand draw you a picture of what's going on. Give it a shot. Let me know how it works for you. Oh, Tanya, that's awesome. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Okay. Thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.